Welcome back to the VINwiki appraisal panel, where we appraise the car collections of various YouTubers and automotive influencers. And today's episode is brought to you by Auto Tempest. Autotempest.com, all the cars, one search. That's exactly what you get. Head over to Auto Tempest on your phone or on a desktop. They've now got a great new mobile app, so check it out. Leave them a great review. I know you'll love it as much as I do. They've been a long-term supporter of the VINwiki channel, so you supporting them is what allows us to make content like this. But it is also the most powerful and easiest way to shop for your next car because they compile the results from all the major listing sites into one place and one search. So thank you to Auto Tempest for making this possible. And thank you, as always, to my co-host for our appraisal panel, John and John. We got John from Car Classic and John from Curated.
Always an honor to be amongst this group of guys, and thank you so much, Ed, for the extended invite.
And it's great to be here. Like, it's always great to do this, but it's even better to be sitting next to Ed in the studio doing it. So I'm having a lot of fun.
That's it. John, you got to come up next time. We'll shoot some more.
Consider it done, and I'm very jealous.
So today we're going to actually do a repeat appraisal, but not much is going to be repeated. Once again, we're going to appraise the car collection of the Stradman. James has made some incredible content and he has owned some amazing cars, but in the last year or so since our last appraisal, he has certainly outdone himself with some recent additions. And the first one is probably the most ridiculous car that he's ever bought, because he's not like us that buy terrible cars that need to be fixed, but he's trying it out. He bought the 2021 Ferrari 812 Superfast that Michael B. Jordan rather publicly crashed trying to race another Ferrari. He said very publicly, James did, that he paid $187,000 for this wrecked car in need of a massive, massive repair. Anytime you buy one of those cars, you are the person that values it the most. And so I'm going to say if he decided to pull the ripcord and get out of this one, about 150 grand.
I agree completely, Ed. Every time someone tells me that they're planning to buy a project like this, especially a more modern supercar, this is just a recipe for potential disaster. So I agree. I'm going to say 150,000 because this could end up being a complete upside down project for him.
I have great mechanical sympathy, and I see cars that are in bad shape, and I want to help them. And I think a lot of people do, and I think perhaps that's what he's doing. But there is very little possibility that things are going to work out well on a car like this, so complex. That would terrify me. I'm going to say a little lower, just to give you some room for some repairs, at 140.
He also recently got himself an OBS truck, which is certainly all the craze lately. He got a 69 GMC C15. He hasn't made much content with it, but I know it's part of the collection. I said 50 grand. I don't get it, but these things are just on fire lately.
They're on fire, and I've heard of people paying 100, 150,000, 200,000 for Restomod versions. I think they're super cool. They're very period, but I'm going to agree with you, Ed, $50,000.
Yeah, I haven't seen this truck, but I mean, I have an old GMC, a 71 GMC, and I've done the work, and I've actually helped people build some of the earlier trucks. And to find a decent one that has, that's been restored or has the work done to it, it's not a rust bucket. It's amazing to say they're $40,000 now. So I have not seen the truck. I'm gonna say 40 grand.
He told me last time we were light on this thing, and so I backed my number up because it's got 6 wheels, and I've had a bad experience with a 6-wheel car. But he's got a Jeep Gladiator, a 2020, with a Hellcat swap. I said 125 grand.
I don't get all of these trucks and cars, and I love James because I like him so much. I'm gonna put another 10 grand on top and say 135,000.
I obviously am the person in the room who is a big 6-wheeler fan, and I have invested way too much in the past into 6-wheel vehicles. I love these things. This thing is insane. There is a whole crazy subculture movement that people love the 6-wheelers, especially something with a Hellcat in it. I think somebody sitting in an auction having a couple sips next to their buddies would drop 150 grand on this thing.
Now, I think we're going to have some controversy about this one, but it is certainly his most impressive purchase. He got rid of the Bugatti Veyron and he bought a Koenigsegg. He's got a 2013 Agera HH. Now, I guess that's really an Agera R with some further modifications. You know, this was in a much lower production season of Koenigsegg's existence. I appreciate that John Tamarian let me come down and drive a CCX when he had one in inventory. I don't really fit. I was not crazy about the car, but the following that these cars have is impressive. I said $2.5 million for this thing.
You know, I think you're wrong, Ed. And listen, we've been, you know, over the last, I would say, year, we've sold 4 Koenigsegg CCX and CCXR examples that are in North America. There's 14 of the early CCX, CCXR cars in North America, and there's very few Ageras in North America. Recently, this was a few weeks ago, an Agera sold overseas for about $3 million. And obviously that was a higher spec. It was a carbon body cars, all these different things. But the reality is the European market and the rest of the world market, there are more cars, so the value is a little bit less. So that being said, I really think this car is worth probably $3 million. You know, it's a unique car. It's technically a one-off. It was built for a collector in the West Coast. I think you can't go wrong. When you look at the value of Pagani Zondas and that they're trading for $7, $8, $9, $10 million. I've heard of cars selling for $12 million. I think these historic, you know, classic, let's say, Koenigsegg examples just have so much value, so much long way to go. I think Christian's a genius. I could go on and on and on in terms of value. Whether you like the car or not, I just think they have an incredible value. So I say $3 million.
Wow. Okay. Now, I'm the first to admit this is not my wheelhouse. This is your guys. This is where you live. I just tried to go online and try to look at what had sold, what publicly had sold, and looked at numbers. And I came in lower than that. But I'm, of course, going to, you know, defer to your expertise. So I'll come up to Ed's $2.5 million. But I mean, I'm sure it's worth $3 million. It's worth whatever it sells for. And obviously, you're a man, John, who obviously knows these cars and actually sells them. So, wow, $3 million. That's amazing.
Now, James was one of the first self-made influencers that was able to buy a Lamborghini Aventador. And I love that he still has the first one, is 2012 Arancio Argos car. It's got a ton of miles. It's had everything done to it. It was on tracks at one point. I love everything he's done with the car. I said 250 grand. I'm sure it's like the worst one ever, but I know he's not going to sell it. And it's just awesome.
You're probably being very generous there, Ed. You know, I love the Aventador. I think there's a lot of car for the money. I'd rather have it than, you know, most modern supercars. You've got incredible value there, but I'm going to say $230,000.
All right. So my guess was actually closer to you, John. And I was at 220,000 on it. And I feel good. If I'm at least close to what you guys are saying, I think I did my research pretty well. So I'm going to say 220.
No, he has another Aventador as well. I mean, amazing build, Liberty Walk, wide body, crazy roadster. It started his life as a Pirelli edition, and then it became a salvage title Pirelli edition, and he has built it to his dream spec in honor of his father. I love this car, even though it is so far away from my taste, but it's got my kind of title. I said $350.
I agree with you, Ed. I think it's a $350,000 car. I will say, because it's such an important part of his career and sort of this iconic piece of his channel, I think one day it'll actually be worth a lot more. And Ed, I mentioned this to you recently. I think you yourself, your cars will command a premium. And I think there's a generation that looks at influencers as an important part of the car culture and community.
How about that?
Well, all right. Well, obviously, then I have to go way
that.
out on a limb and agree with both of you and just say 350. There we go.
Well, that is amazing. I think I'll be more of the Pimp My Ride chapter of future influencer cars. But now this one he bought from you, John. He's got an 87 Countach. It's gone up in value a lot since our last appraisal, as they all have. I said 650.
James bought this at the perfect time. He was at the tail end of the cars before they really bounced. I mean, this car has just, you know, we did everything to the car. He was able to drive it, I think it was 9 days and 4,000 miles back home to Utah. So, recently on BAT, Countachs have ranged between 500 and as much as 800,000. This example is white. It was a factory white car, and they do bring a premium. I think if it was red, it'd be a little bit less. But recently a white quattro valve fuel injected US car, which is the same as James, did bring 700,000 on Bring a Trailer. So I am very actually confident that this car would bring the same, if not more. Especially because everything is done and it's turnkey. So I'm going to say 715.
Whoa.
There we go.
Okay. I was way off on this one. The number I came up with was 620. But again, I'm sitting with two Lamborghini experts, so I will defer to you. But it's interesting because you guys are experts. You obviously know the car, and you guys deal in this world all the time. For me, somebody who's looking into it, the only exposure I can get is going online and looking at sales at auctions and things like that. And it apparently that in private hands, these cars are actually moving for actually more money and more rapidly than it appears in the public market. So that's pretty fascinating. Yeah.
Now, he has another vintage Lamborghini. Actually, he has now a few of them. He's building quite the Lamborghini collection, James, and he's got a 74 Espada Series 3.
Yes.
I know this is one of your favorite Lamborghinis because you are the weird contrarian you are, John. But I said I think it's worth 125.
I'm going to put it a little more. He bought a very cool car. It was an important part of the Lamborghini community. It was owned by a lady that was very active with the Lamborghini Club for many, many years. And it's obviously this pink Espada. It's always been known to be a very nice example. She took care of it. I'm going to say 150,000 just because it was a well-known car in the historic Lamborghini community.
Yeah, so this is more my kind of Lamborghini. Absolutely. 100%. I love it. It's a 4-seater Lamborghini, front engine V12. It's a fantastic style. It's got the vertical rear window. It is super cool. I want one. So I've actually been looking into the market in the last year. So this is actually something I'm very familiar with. This is a very cool car, the Series 3. I'd prefer a Series 2 personally, just for the looks of it. But the Series 3 is great. It's the most advanced version of it. And I agree with you, John. I would put it about $150.
Now, another car that's gotten a little bit more affordable for all the wrong reasons since the last time we appraised it is his Gallardo. He has an orange manual Gallardo, peak early spec, but unfortunately, as we know can happen, the engine blew up. And so that's been a bit of a controversy on the channel and things like that. But needing an engine, I think it's probably worth 90 grand.
I agree with you, Ed. And we won't go into blown Gallardo engines on this appraisal, but there's some great VINwiki content around that. But yeah, I'm going to say $90,000, especially because it is a manual.
I guess the manual pushes it up a little bit, but if you have a blown up Lamborghini, I would be a little more conservative. I don't think I'd spend over 70 on it just to leave myself some room to fix the thing.
He has another Gallardo as well. This one has a functional engine, and it's a Spider, and it's an E-Gear car. He recently acquired it. He's gone through a few other things, including a Super Trofeo Stradale. But I said 120 for this car, and I think that just the entire Gallardo range represents such an amazing kind of first supercar value that you just can't go wrong with something in that kind of price range.
I agree. It's a lot of car for the money. They're fantastic. The other day we put up a poll asking sort of enthusiasts what their favorite undervalued supercar was. And I can't tell you how many people sent us messages about Gallardos. Again, I think the E-Gear cars are a little difficult to sell, but I'm going to put this at 115,000.
All right, I went a little bit. This is the first time in this session that I've actually gone over you guys because it's the Spider, and I think it's a great looking car, and I think it is at that price point is one of the best cars you can buy. I put it at 130, so maybe I'm spending too much money, but I really think it's a groovy car.
Absolutely. Now, he also has a new Lamborghini, a 2023 Huracan Starato. I got to spend a lot of time in one recently in Park City when I was visiting Warehouse, talking there to some of their members, and They are super duper cool. I mean, it's kind of a gimmicky thing, obviously, an off-road Huracan, but in terms of a car that you get to enjoy all the Lamborghini things while also not worrying about potholes and parking and transitions and things like that. I mean, to call it an off-road car is a little bit crazy because it has barely the ride height of an S-Class, but it is still super duper cool. His is an amazing color, Verde Scandal, and I said 375.
I think it's such a cool car, and I think because of Lamborghini's history with the LM002, I don't think it's gimmicky at all. I would love to own one. I probably can't at this point with a baby on the way, but I think it's just super cool car. I'm going to say 375,000.
And I agree with both of you. I think they're cool. I think the whole safari thing that's been growing over the last few years of turning street cars into kind of moderately off-road cars, the kind of parade de car thing. Porsche obviously is building a version of that, and I dig it too. That as if it is gimmicky, then it's a cool gimmicky. It's Lamborghini having fun, right? It's just fun on top of fun. And who doesn't want to do that if you're spending that kind of money? And I agree. I think it's about 375 grand.
There we go. Now, he does have two LM002s. He's got an 87 carbed car and an 89 fuel-injected car. And I mean, these things are continuing to, for very good reason, climb in value. I know they're always projects. There's no such thing as a perfect LM002.
No.
But they do both run. And so I said 350 for the carbureted car and 300 for the fuel-injected.
It's so funny. So I helped him find the white car that he purchased. And because I like him so much, I didn't even want to get involved in the transaction because LM02s can be very temperamental. And it's not something like a Countach that you're driving across country. That being said, I think it's one of the coolest cars of all time. It created a segment. I think they're just so outrageous. They're so excessive. It perfectly describes what Lamborghini is as a brand. There's always someone that wants one or would buy one. I think there's so much intrigue around these cars. Parts are very difficult to find, and yet people still love them. I'm going to put it both. I agree completely with you, Ed. I'm going to say 350 and 300,000.
Yeah, who am I to argue with you guys? But I think you have two of them, so you always have one that works. Right? It's
better odds.
It's like one of them is going to start today. And my friend John Harrison actually did the one lap of America back in the day.
No way.
Yeah, and if you ask him about it, if you had to ask somebody about being tortured in Vietnam, it's about the same story. Like, he said that was the most miserable automotive experience he ever had in his life in that thing. Now, I've only been near him. I've driven one once. I don't see the appeal in other than just you're showing up at a movie premiere in it. But I think the values are there, and I think the carbureted ones are worth just a little bit more. So you got 350, 300.
Now, of course, he's got a Mercy, and that's been an acquisition since the last time we did this, and he has a great one. He's got a Verde Artemis 40th anniversary 2003 Murcielago. These, of course, were all manual cars, ultra limited, a gorgeous color. Didn't sell all that well originally. Now, his does happen to be a Canadian car, but that really doesn't matter at this stage of the game. It's crazy that we just celebrated Lamborghini's 60th anniversary, so this is now a 20-year-old car, but obviously we love Mercedes around here. I said 650,000, which is a big climb since I know he acquired it, but I think well worth it at that money.
You're 100% right, Ed. A car recently traded in the Northeast at almost 650,000. We sold two to a good friend of ours, Gabe, and the other we sold to a client in Texas. And both of those cars traded well over 500,000, one just under 600,000. So my opinion is a good car today. I searched for years to buy one. I would try to buy every example I could. There's not many in the US. I think there's 15 or 14 cars in North America. I think these cars have a massive future, numbered Murcielago. I could go on and on and on. And I think the color is so spectacular in person. Photos do not do the color justice. And when someone actually sees it in person, they're like, oh my God, I should have bought this, or find me one. So when you're looking for one, you can't find one. And when they come to market, they sell pretty quick. So my opinion is 650,000 as well.
Both at 650. Okay. And, you know, it is amazing how Mercies have just exploded. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the influence of you two guys.
Just, you know, the market doing what it does.
Doing it what it does. And, you know, as far as my outsider number, I was looking more at 600, but, you know, of course, 650 would make sense. What's 50,000 when you're spending 600 grand?
Now, one thing I love about James and the content that he makes is that he's always buying the newest, coolest cars, immediately taking them on long road trips, immediately modifying them, personalizing them, and he's bought several of those in the last few years, including a 2024 Lotus Emira V6 First Edition, a 2023 Nissan 400Z that's now a wide-body car, and a Ram TRX. I mean, always a great truck to have around. And so I said that the Lotus, they all seem to be about 110 grand, 50 for the 400Z, and about 50 grand or so for the TRX.
I would agree with you, Ed. I think the Lotus Emira is a super cool car. I know they're bringing a little bit over sticker right now for some of the first cars, so 110,000. The Nissan 400Z, it's just not my thing. I'm 50,000, and the Ram TRX, I think these insane combustion engine, you know, this maybe end of an era, you know, 500, 600, 7 horsepower trucks are just so cool. And they bring out the sort of little boy in me, and I think it's just like something you dream of as a kid. So I say $50,000, and I would love a TRX.
Yeah, the Emira, it's nice that there's still a Lotus built in England because all the electric cars they're coming out with are going to be built in China. So this is still a British-made Lotus, and you know, it's supposed to go up against Corvettes and things like that. It's actually a really cool car, and it unfortunately doesn't get the exposure that it should. I put that at about 100. Nissan at about 50, and yes, the beast of a truck, that is the end of an era. And I think trucks tap into the kind of most visceral part of a car guy, and especially when it's got a monstrous engine like that, right? So I think I bump it up from you guys a little bit to 60 grand.
There we go. Now, when we did this last time, we were all around $4.1 to $4.2 million for the Stradman car collection. I am at just shy of $6.3 million, meaning he's added $2 million worth of cars in just over a year. Now, I will say that he's mentioned that a lot of that is the loan on that Koenigsegg, which he said was $35,000 a month, which is an eye-watering check to write every month for the continued use of an amazing car. But good on you, James. So a $6 million car collection.
That's honestly insane to watch his rise and sort of stardom. It's incredible, and he's still an amazingly humble guy and super, super passionate. Congratulations, and honestly, I would not be scared of paying that loan on the Koenigsegg, because I told you guys they're going up in value. But I'm a big fan of his entire collection, and obviously his passion for Lamborghinis.
You guys have already said it. It's an amazing collection. He's done amazing things. It is staggering that a career like his, going through YouTube and things like this, the man has a $6 million, because I came in just a few dollars shy of $6 million in cars, even if some of them are on a heavy loan. That's completely acceptable to me. An amazing collection. Well done.
Exactly. So well done, James. Thank you so much to everybody who's watched. And I also know that James is a frequent user of Auto Tempest. So thanks once again to Auto Tempest for supporting this video and several appraisal videos this year on VINwiki. We love their support, but we also love that being the first place I go most mornings to shop for my next car. So thank you to James. Thank you both for being here, and we'll be back soon with another VINwiki appraisal.